start off this show by saying thank you to everyone that has subscribed. Please tell your fellow boxing fans to subscribe as well. Keep leaving us comments and hitting that like button. That said, let's get into another boxing weekend recap with the Manhattan Mexicano, David De Leon, and myself, Mark Salinas. David, we had Wood versus Lee. That ended with Wood KOing Lee.
Yeah, that was an outstanding fight. But first, I have a shout out to make. I know it's my buggy, Mark. I know how critical you are of fighters from across the pond.
They're in my top. They're in my top seven boxing continents. I don't shit on them too much. They got North America, South America, Asia, Africa, Australia, Antarctica. Then we have Europe right at seven. So they're in my top seven boxing continents.
Yeah, there are only 7 continents on the planet, bro. Don't act like that was a compliment. But like I said, you, sir, do not appreciate the UK boxers. But let me tell you, there's something truly special about boxing events that take place in the UK, especially when it involves 2 UK fighters in a championship fight. The energy from the crowd is infectious, man. I saw a fight in Manchester, England. It was Usyk versus Bellew, and it was a hell of a show. One of the greatest boxing experiences I've ever had. So shout out to the UK boxing fans and fighters. This fight had that same atmosphere. I love the ring entrances and the crowds chanting throughout the fight. It was something to behold. Back to the fight. This was a fight between 2 top featherweights, and it did not disappoint. Wood is, of course, known for beating Mauricio Lara and Michael Conley, and Warrington, a former IBF champ, gave El Venado Lopez a close, tough fight in December of last year, and this one was a grudge match between 2 UK fighters. The fight started off close with Wood taking the first 2 rounds. However, Warrington was really aggressive and was looking to counter the whole time. He was charging at Wood throughout the fight. I did find it interesting whenever Wood would get hit, he would freeze up at times, whether it was to the head or to the body. That was kind of strange. But Warrington started opening up more around the 3rd round, and that's when he really started to take over. Wood was switching from southpaw to orthodox throughout the fight. There was no real rhyme or reason to it, but I felt like there had to be part of the plan. Either way, Warrington was able to adjust, and he was timing Wood's punches by slipping and countering, going to the body, then back up top to the head. And Wood did not have an answer for it. He couldn't defend against those flurries. Warrington pinned Wood against the ropes at one point in the 3rd, and he had him stunned, man. I'm telling you, it looked like he was going to go out. Then a low blow call from the ref saved Wood from an onslaught. And after that, it was more of the same in rounds 4, 5, and 6. Warrington was repeatedly stunning Wood, and Wood looked frustrated. And then the unthinkable happened in round 7. Wood, who's bleeding from a cut over his swollen right eye, switched back to southpaw and went back to throwing the lead left with a right hook right after it. And he was doing that earlier in the fight, and he went back to it, and he ended up catching Warrington in between Warrington's punches, and he stunned him really bad. Like, Warrington froze up, and Wood opened up and started hitting Warrington about 3 or 4 more times, sent him on his back with seconds left in the round. And this was very similar to how Tyson Fury was knocked down in the first Wilder fight. Warrington was laying flat on his back, right? And somehow he beats the count. He just gets up, stumbles back to his corner, and the ref is continuing to count him out while his back is to the ref. The ref waves the fight off, and you could see Warrington's team was protesting afterwards, but all in all, it was another thrilling end to an action-packed fight from Lee Wood. I'm telling you, this guy is like the second coming of Arturo Gatti. He was taking a beating, but he knew that he could change the fight with one punch, and it was very similar like to what Gatti used to do back in his heyday. I think we've seen the last of Wood's fights at 126 pounds. He's a huge featherweight. He has to boil himself down to make the weight. It might be why he looked kind of listless during the fight. He'll be going back up to 130 and looking for a title there. I really feel for Warrington though, but I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch of this fight. Wood's prospects though look bright at 130 pounds. He could fight Joe Cordina, who would be a huge fight in the UK, and he's an IBF champ, so that would be for a title. And then you have possible matchups with Valdez and maybe Navarrete as well.
Well, we were texting each other. You texted me in the morning. I knew you were pretty excited about this fight, and I told you, nah, I'm really not into Euros. But I was under the impression that Zurdo was going to fight on that undercard. But I was completely wrong. tells you how much I pay attention to UK fighters. And I don't know why I thought, it was the zone, and I just thought they were going to throw them all in Europe. So I wasn't even going to watch Zurdo. But I did watch it after texting with you. I caught it on BT. It's a UK channel. I caught it maybe about 2 hours after it was televised. You have to get yourself into the right mindset to watch these Euros, man. You have to just understand it's two C-class bruisers that the Euros love to watch. They put them together and they just go to war into bloody mess, chingos of mole, chingos of just destruction. They love it, right? You're not going to see una pelea bien fina. No vas a mirar una pelea con fintas, con movimiento, un boxeo bien fino, bien bonito, como de Finito López o Juanma Márquez. You're not going to see nada de movimiento, nada de defensa, nada de pasos laterales, nada. Fintas, no había ni una. Y you got to take it for what it is. They're going to put two dudes in there. They're going to kill each other. It's going to be a bloody war, and you got to like it for what it was. A lot of heart, not a lot of technique, but it is what it is. That's what they do. But hey, it was a lot of heart, and it was very entertaining, but it's hard to watch when you love beautiful boxing.
Wow, man, you can't even give credit to the show these men put on without
A lot
shedding.
of heart. I gave them
Mark,
they
Mark,
have a lot of heart.
Mark, no one is confusing either of these guys for being Juan Manuel Marquez. All right? Yeah, it was a slugfest, but you're gonna have that when you have two hometown rivalries going at each other. I mean, they're not from the same hometown, but they're like nearby each other, right? So
Yep.
obviously there's gonna be some heated moments, heated exchange. Passions are gonna get the better of the scientific mind. You can't fault them for that, all right? But there was some very good boxing on Showcase, bro. Navarrete is every bit as crude as these guys, maybe even more so. But you don't hesitate to give him credit for the good things that he does. Same here. Warrington was doing a lot of good feints. He was doing a lot of great countering. Lee Wood, of course, he's not a defensive specialist by any means. And I compared him to Gaddy. I think you made a point earlier. Gaddy at least showed some defense. He had some ring movement. Lee Wood's not going to give you any of that, okay? But again, there was good boxing on display, man. You give him a little credit, bro.
No, that is a little bit more talented than these guys. But
I'm not disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing. I think you're right, but like I saying, like you want to talk about somebody who doesn't do a lot of stuff right or doesn't show good movement in boxing. Navarrete is right up there.
well, I'm not shitting on them. I'm not shitting on them. They're in the top 7. Later on that day on the zone, we did have Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez and Joe Smith Jr., both light heavyweights, now moving up to cruiserweight division. This was a really good fight. Ramirez clearly won, dominated out there. In the last rounds, he did kind of gas out. I really don't like him boxing at a full 200. He doesn't have to meet that 200 weight limit. He can fight those guys at 185, 190. I would like to see him there because I believe he gassed out maybe because his body was in shock that he was fighting for the first time at 200 pounds, a real professional fight. Maybe he walks around like that. I don't know. But when you're in a professional 10-round fight and you're fighting 20 pounds heavier than you ever have, it's going to gas you out. So I'd like to see him at 185 for another reason, because what if Better Bevan Bival see that he catches a title at cruiserweight and then they want to have a matchup? What if they want to have it at 175? It'll be easier for him to move down and get that money and get another belt down there as well. So I'd like to see him at 185. What'd you see, Dave?
Well, I was a little worried about Zurdo going into this fight. He looked slow at 175 pounds. And when I saw him warming up in the dress room right before the fight, he looked slower. His body looked softer. And I was wondering if Zurdo would even able to carry his power up with him. You had a feeling that Joe Smith would be able to. He's a more dynamic puncher than Zurdo was. Zurdo's more heavy-handed. And from the jump when the fight started, you saw that Smith came out very aggressively. He was pushing Zurdo back, and Zurdo looked uncomfortable and clumsy a lot early in the fight. And even though he was kind of stumbling around the ring a lot, he was still Zurdo was more accurate with his punches, and it looked like he would stun Joe Smith every time he landed on him. I had it even after about 4 rounds, and then in the 5th round, you could see Zurdo switching his tactics up. he started boxing off the back foot and kind of using the ring a little bit more, using some lateral movement. That was a good switch because when Zurdo was trying to fight on the inside, looked like Joe Smith had the advantage. Zurdo just didn't look coordinated enough to fight on the inside like he usually does. So when he changed his tactics, fighting off the back foot, he was countering Smith's punches. He was showing some slickness in there. And I remember texted you saying, "Hey, Zurdo's looking kind of slick in there." And what did you call him?
I
You
call him quick slow, man. He gets there slow, but he gets there quick.
yeah. It's like it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense, or it doesn't make sense, but it makes sense, right?
Yeah,
Is
quick to
weird.
get there slow.
Yeah. He slipped and ducked under Smith's punches, almost like the Matrix, where they're moving out of the way really slow, but the bullet goes by, right? That's how it was looking, and he was answering back as he slipped Joe Smith's punches with uppercuts and some nice jabs, and that's when he really took over. So credit to Zurdo's trainers, man. I believe it's Malik Scott and Julian Chua. Those guys have really given him an extra layer, another facet to his game to be able to rely on because he tried to fight with Smith on the inside and he switched it up. Joe Smith only had one gear and Zurdo was able to show a different gear, and that's where he really took over. I think he can make for some good fights at cruiser. The guys there were pretty slow too, so it's not that much of a disadvantage for Zurdo. But if he can box like that against the 200 pounders in that division, he might be able to get a title there as well. Of course, the man in that division is Jai Opataya. I don't see anybody messing with him. He's out of Australia. He has a really high amateur pedigree, former world class champion amateur boxer. Mark, I believe you do have Australia on your continent list. Where are they?
They're number 5, right,
Right,
right before Antarctica and Europe, right?
right before Antarctica. Got it. Right.
Yeah. Well, that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you very much. Don't miss Yanabek Alim Kinuli versus Goltieri Saturday night. We will be there. PYP Boxing will be there covering the full fight from Rosenberg, Texas. We'll be there for the press conference, the weigh-in, and the fight. Be looking out for that coverage. Thank you, guys, and we'll see you next week.
Putazos y pendejadas.